I'm Gareth Van Sale with Golf Business, and we've got a very special guest in the studio with us here today, Cody Willard, who is a seasoned investor, hedge fund manager, and former TV anchor. You might have come across his contents on tradingwithcody.com, which is a massive website, right?
It's always growing, let's put it
Yeah.
that way. Yes, it's great.
And also, you've been a previous co-host of Fox Business's Happy Hour.
Filmed out of the Bull and Bear Bar at the Waldorf Astoria. It's what might have been the most unique business television program of all time.
Amazing. And you're also the Wall Street correspondent for the Jay Leno
Tonight Show, yes. After I left Fox, I went over to the Tonight Show for a little bit, and it was a good time. I mean, that was just after the financial crisis, and so there was some fun stuff to make fun of, when you're doing the Tonight Show, it's not actually supposed to be all that serious, it's supposed to be humorous. And so, yes, we did that too, and it was a great time.
And then obviously you've also been featured in the likes of the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times, where you had contributed in
I've written for both of those many, many times over the years. I don't know that you could name a single U.S.-based television or print media that I have not at some point either been quoted and or featured on and or contributed to. So, yes, I've done a lot of media over the years, and I'm very excited to be here with you today, Gareth.
And last but not least, you're also an advisor to Freedom Asset Management for the Middle East, which is based here.
That is right. I'm very excited to be a part of this. I'm excited to be in the UAE and part of the growth that is the technological and societal revolution that is happening here, that is changing this world and becoming more inclusive and more prosperous. And it's great to be here. And Freedom Asset Management is a great partner with me. So, yes, it's great to be here.
So let's start there with your trip now to the UAE and why you are here. Tell us more.
Well, so we're here, raising funds for the new investment vehicle that we're partnered with Freedom with. The strategy is what we call the US VIP. I'm a very important person. I don't know if you know that, but the US VIP Technology Fund. It's mostly it's US centric technology investing. It's not all U.S., but the whole idea, and what I've done for the last 25 years, is I do what I call revolution investing. Innovation is great, disruptive technologies are great, but I'm always trying to find companies and trends that are changing the world, changing society forever, and creating trillion-dollar economies along the way. If we can get our buckets out in front of the trillions of dollars that get prosperity that get created with technological revolutions, then, it all works out over the long term.
And what are those trends that you're seeing right now?
Well, the most obvious one that I think everybody would quote is AI. I mean, the AI revolution right now is what I liken it to. At this moment, it's the dial-up internet phase of the internet revolution. And, when you would dial up 56 kilobits per second on your AOL account and download your Michael Jordan screensaver, and it took you 8 minutes to do it. Even then, though, everybody recognized the potential of connecting billions of human beings, millions of businesses on the internet, and that broadband speeds would eventually come along, and we would be able to do amazing stuff on that internet platform. That's where we are right now with the AI revolution. I think most people can recognize that the potential of AI to change society, change business, create prosperity, and trillions of dollars of wealth over the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years is just burgeoning. And if you look at right now, Microsoft, Copilot, and some of the other agents right there, ChatGPT, those things are great. They're already very impressive. I get in arguments with ChatGPT about Michael Jordan sometimes. But more to the point, it's still so early, and we don't know yet just how all the different applications and services that will be built upon that AI platform. But it's coming, and it's coming quicker. One of the neatest things about technology and investing in technology is what I call the Kurzweilian acceleration of the technology revolutions. I know I need a pithier way of saying this, but the idea is that over time, technology advances ever quicker. And so what took the internet, it took 12, 13 years after the internet revolution came along before the smartphone really hit. I don't think it's going to take 10 or 12 years for whatever this next iteration of the AI revolution is going to part to take us to, and it's coming quick, and we're going to be in front of it. I'll give you one quick guess on it. Robotics will be obviously part of that AI revolution. I think we see that pitch coming down the pike right here too.
So you think that that's the next evolution on this path that we're going?
I think so. The humanoid robotics revolution, specifically the form factor of humans, this is a human world that we have built. We use elevators and stairs and everything else built for the human form factor. There's going to be endless different form factors of robots running around, including like Star Wars droids like NVIDIA showed the other day, which are very cool and fun for your kids and things. But, you'll have form factors that are going to clean the windows of the high-rises out here in Dubai, and then you'll have humanoid form factors that are helping build the high-rises out here. And what used to take 5 years to build will take a year and a half to build, and what used to take 3 years to build will take 6 months to build. Everything accelerates.
So within this acceleration that we're experiencing, can you tell me more about the VIP fund and how that approaches the investment landscape?
Right. And so what we're always trying to do is find those platforms that are creating the trillion-dollar economies and these accelerated technologies. And that's what that's what I've spent my entire career doing. I mean, I'll drop a few names. I've been in Apple since March 2003 when Steve Jobs had come back and they were just starting to roll out the iTunes platform. I've been in Google since the day it came public, Meta a month after it came public, even Bitcoin in 2013. I bought NVIDIA in 2016 because they were talking about the AI revolution and driverless and robotics, and they were positioning themselves to create that platform. And certainly Tesla right now would be the most obvious humanoid robotics company that is, the Optimus robots coming down the pike. And so what we try to do is we spend hundreds of hours a week, it seems like. I mean, certainly we work very hard, and all we do is read, research, talk, network, and learn more and more about how these technologies are going to integrate and build.
And we're in a part of the world here which is playing an increasing role in these technologies.
That's right.
Abu Dhabi, just down the road from us, there's big funds there. MGX, which was launched last year, it's got $50 billion, I believe, in which it's basically going to invest in top AI and tech and next generation companies. There's also ADIA, which is the Abu Dhabi investments arm, which has effectively got over $1 trillion in assets under management. And there's also a big push from their side to invest in tech.
Rightly so, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they recognize that oil and the Middle East traditional growth here is exciting and great and will continue for a long time. But the AI revolution and these technological revolutions and the business and the hubs that this place can create, it becomes integral to the AI revolution and the robotics revolution. Without those kinds of funds and without the vision of the people here in the UAE investing in these revolutionary technologies, it would take longer. That acceleration wouldn't be happening as quickly as it is.
So do you think that this part of the world is going to become a key engine for what we're seeing happening around us, basically injecting the capital to make all of this stuff happen?
I think that way you phrase that is perfect. It's the capital. It will be certainly, the U.S. has also got a lot of money and not sovereign wealth funds yet, but we have a lot of wealth in the United States that is channeled into these technological revolutions right now too. Around the world, people recognize this stuff is going to happen, but the sovereign wealth funds around here and just investors around here they get the vision and they are actively becoming an engine to all of this. And again, without it, you might call them spark plugs if we're going to go back to the old-fashioned internal combustion engine kind of cars. Might call them the magnetic motors of the revolution, since we're now on EVs.
And talking about cars, I can't have an interview with you without talking about Tesla and how the stock has performed this year over the last year. There's been a lot of debate around whether Elon Musk has got too involved in politics and whether he's getting distracted from some of his core businesses. Do you think that that's a fair thing to say?
The short answer to the first phrase is yes, he is definitely too involved in politics. It drives me crazy, even before he was actually a part of this Doge movement thing. Just the amount of tweets, X's, whatever you want to call it, the amount of partisan politicking that he has done over the last 2 years. I wish he would just run his companies and change this world in the ways he's doing it. On the other hand, there is so much waste and not necessarily corruption, but just so much waste in the United States government and in every government. And you can't change human nature. And there's an agency problem with governments controlling money because it's not actually ever their money. It is taxpayers' money. That money comes from individual people at some point. And when you're the government and you're spending other people's money, it's always easier to pay for a $300 hammer that should have been $6, you know. And so I think he rightly recognizes that there is a deficit, an ongoing deficit problem in the United States, and the debt problem in the United States is scary. There's tens of trillions of dollars of recognized debt on that balance sheet, and there's hundreds of trillions of dollars of unrecognized obligations and debts that are not recognized on that balance sheet. And the U.S. is, you know, an incredibly virtuous and open, transparent, rule of law financial system, and it's great to have all of that. But someone has to go in and stop the endless cycle of ever more debt and ever more deficit. And unfortunately, it's ugly and painful to do that. And his chainsaw shenanigans up on stage, while annoying, are actually somewhat poignant and why he did. You know, it reveals what he's going to have to do, and it is good for us to cut out waste in the government spending.
Yeah, I guess, you know, he was inspired by the Argentinian presidents and with the chainsaw situation there.
That's right.
And that leads me on to Trump as well. He's had an impact. It's undeniable.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Trump 2.0, we can discuss at length, and in some ways it's not that much different than Trump 1.0, which in some ways what I call the Republican Democrat regime and the sort of the paradigm of regulation and government rule that they have had in my lifetime and over the last 100 years or so that the Republican Democrat regime has ruled our country, or maybe not ruled, but been voted and elected through our system. That paradigm doesn't really change. I mean, Biden and Trump and liberals and conservatives and Democrats and Republicans can argue a lot more about social issues than they really can about corporatist policies and how they sort of manage the economy. And, you know, the one big change that we've had in my lifetime might be what Elon and Trump are doing, what Trump is enabling Elon to do in cutting out so much waste out of the government and making the budgets so much smaller. And, you know, if we can get people who have been otherwise bureaucratizing in the government to actually get in the private sector and be more productive in creating prosperity, it benefits all of society.
Well, for somebody like yourself who follows stocks on a daily basis and you look into this from all angles, what do you make of the impact that Trump, Elon Musk, Doge has had on the U.S. stock markets?
Well, like you were asking a minute ago,
Yeah.
you know, the impact on Tesla's stock. It's funny you said it over the last year, because over the last year Tesla stock is actually up, even with this 42% pullback so far this year, and it being down now it's been cut in half from its recent highs. But there was also that like Trump euphoric bubble after he was elected, and it was like, Elon's going to get whatever he wants, and Tesla's going to be the most valuable company in the history of the planet. And I actually do believe that will happen over the next 10 to 15 years. The only one that could challenge it would be Elon's SpaceX, which will also be one of the most valuable companies ever on the history of the planet. But yeah, it's the markets are going to do what they're going to do. We'll have euphoric cycles. We will have worries about recessions. That if you actually go look, Republicans and Democrats together right now are about as pessimistic as they have been about the economy and worried about recession and the stock market than they were at the same rate that they were at the COVID bottom. In fact, the average Democrat, the polls show right now that the average Democrat is more worried about the future and the economy and the markets than they were even at the COVID bottom. Never before have people been this pessimistic on the Democrat side, and never before, when a Republican president is in power, have the Republicans been this worried about that stuff. I'll take the other side of that all day.
But does this present a good buying opportunity?
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think we're putting money to work right now. We've got some cash that we are putting to work every day. We are raising more money to put to work into these companies right now. I love having the opportunity to buy Tesla 50% off. I was not buying it, at $400 a share, $450, $488, which is where eventually it got. In fact, we were trying to trim it down, hedge it down a little bit. But at this point, anytime it dips, we've been buying it here in the 220s. If it gets down to 200, I'll buy some more. If it gets below 200, I'll nibble some more from there. NVIDIA, I think, I've been an investor in NVIDIA since 2016 personally, and we have been actively buying it on this pullback too, because it is the dominant AI platform, and that's not going away either. So if you have a longer term outlook over the next 5, 10, 15 years, as Warren Buffett has famously said, that you actually want the prices to come down near term so that you can buy these and invest them at a better price than you otherwise would. Looking out over the next 5, 10, 15 years, I think we're getting some great pitches right now. And you don't go all in all at once, right? There's still risk. We can have another 20, 30% downturn in each of those names, and the markets themselves can continue to be hurt by all of these worries and the pessimism out there. But eventually those things go away, and this AI cycle, the robotics cycle, the space revolution, all of the stuff that we're talking about here is going to create tens of trillions of dollars of prosperity for the investors who get in front of it.
Yeah, I think it was Buffett who famously said that you've got to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy, right?
And people were greedy 60 days ago, 90 days ago, when the markets were euphoric about the Trump victory and the potential of everything. And clearly, they are very fearful right now. So I wouldn't quite call myself greedy, but I would say I do think there's some good buying opportunities.
Okay, so there's some good opportunities there. What about some of these other tech companies, the more traditional big tech companies? So Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft. Do you think that those companies have a role to play in this world that is changing so quickly towards AI?
Not only do they have a role to play, what's unique about this moment and these revolutions, the AI and robotics revolution specifically, is that the amount of capital that it takes to be a leader in it right now is tens of billions of dollars to spend. And even with the DeepSeek out of China and some of these incredibly AI efficiencies that are being created, you still need, if you want to make the best applications and the best services and the best revolutions built on top of those AI platforms, you want the costs to come down dramatically over time and even sooner, ASAP. And so, yes, I think there's, I've been in Apple since March 2003, Google, like I said, Alphabet these days, Meta, examples. The one that I don't own and I don't want to own and I think is in trouble is Microsoft. I think Microsoft, with their OpenAI investments and their approach to the AI revolution using OpenAI instead of building their own artificial intelligence platform, has been a mistake, and I think it's going to come back to haunt them.
Why is that the case? Why do you think that?
Well, if nothing else, like with the Microsoft Copilot AI, that's been the big focus, and it's supposed to be built on this OpenAI ChatGPT platform. And meanwhile, Microsoft is giving them tens of billions of dollars to build that and spend on Microsoft Cloud Services that runs the AI. But OpenAI is taking that money and building Copilot competitors. They're building AI agents that are doing the things that Microsoft thought their AI agents would be doing, and their OpenAI is doing it with Microsoft's money. And so I think they've painted themselves in a bit of a corner. If you watch any interview with the CEO, Satya Nadella, over the last 6 months, and he is like defensive and hurt, and I even think his days are probably numbered, frankly.
And he came out to bat for Sam Altman when Sam Altman was under pressure.
Sam Altman's been, Sam Altman was fired by the board for being less than honest, and then like 72 hours later, he was back in power, and the board left eventually. And so, I still think there's some great Netflix series to be made out of that story with Sam Altman and OpenAI, and I think I think there's going to be some fascinating insights to come out of what's happened with Microsoft and OpenAI and they'll teach that in the business schools 5-10 years from now.
So we've spoken about a lot of the big tech players that everybody sees, it's in their radar. Are there companies out there that are not in the radar, but that are going to have a massive impact on the future of our world?
Always, right? I mean, there are companies that aren't even started yet. There are high school kids right now learning about AI and figuring out robotics strategies that no one has ever thought of before. And in 5 years, they'll be funded to the tune of billions of dollars. And 7 years, there'll be more companies coming public in all of these revolutionary sectors. But yes, even right now, there are smaller, middle cap, revolutionary companies. I'll name a couple here that we've been investing and buying recently. GitLab is one of them. It is a software repository. And the one thing that the AI revolution is already doing incredibly well is helping software developers write code. And GitLab is a place where all of that sort of comes, all of those different codes, the patches, the software code, all of it is sitting there, and you as a developer can go in there and grab, paste, and it'll help you write the code. Very heavily invested in making the AI development happen on that central repository. Another thing that always wins in technological revolutions is economic and energy efficiency. And to this day, all of those hyperscalers, like we're talking about Google, Meta, Microsoft, are spending billions of dollars on old-fashioned hard drives with magnetic spinning wheels doing the ones and zeros. And that's not very fast, number one, and it's not very energy efficient, number two. And flash drives are replacing that. And there's a company called Pure Storage. There are other companies too that will be benefiting from this. But Pure Storage itself is driving down the cost of memory for the AI revolution, and that's another potential one. There's always more risk in the mid caps than some of the big caps. Microsoft being an exception, it might be riskier than some of the mid caps. But there are, you got to be careful with the mid caps. And frankly, I will just throw it out there also, I don't think small caps, technology small caps, are anything you want to mess with right now. The small cap technology market, publicly traded market, it's probably broken. Because if you are a really good small cap startup technology company, there is more than enough money, not only in the UAE, but in the United States. When the venture capital's out there, the private equity companies are ready and willing to write you billion-dollar checks to keep you private, and they want to benefit from it. And if you're coming public as a small cap startup technology company, you have to ask yourself as a retail investor, why do they need your money?
That's interesting, because isn't the market designed in such a way that those companies that start out as small caps can eventually become the large caps?
I'm glad you phrased it that way, because that's another great point. The other problem with the small cap publicly traded markets right now is if you have been in the publicly traded markets for 20 years and you're a technology company and you're still a small cap, you've done something wrong. You should have been a mid cap or a big cap by now. When I invested in Apple, it was a split adjusted 25 cents a share in net cash on their balance sheet. The stock was trading at a split adjusted 20 cents a share. I actually can tell you, not split adjusted. It was $14 net cash on the balance sheet. The stock was trading at $12 when I bought it in March 2003. That does not exist anymore. That company would not even have ever done that, and it's incredible that moment in time was there. And that just doesn't exist anymore.
And what does the role of private equity have to play in all of this?
Private equity is interesting because venture capital certainly is a bigger part of this. And even like what we're talking about with the UAE and Abu Dhabi and the sovereign wealth funds writing these checks for technology startups and the AI, robotics, and space industries. Private equity, it's a different beast, and I think the mid cap, large cap tech, not just technology, but the publicly traded companies that are out there, I wouldn't want to be a private equity guy trying to find inefficiencies in the markets right now. Let's put it that way.
Interesting. And let's just look at space as well. That's another area of interest for you. What are you seeing there that's catching your interest of late? Obviously, we know SpaceX. That's the big gorilla in the room now, so to speak. Bigger than NASA.
It's really the only gorilla in the room right now.
I mean, it seems to have displaced NASA in many ways. I mean, NASA is relying on SpaceX now.
Yeah, I mean...
so that's been a huge success story. But are there other companies that you're seeing?
There are. So I've spent the last 5 or 6 years networking, learning, meeting private startups, publicly traded companies. In the SPAC bubble 4 or 5 years ago, there were a dozen or so small cap space startup companies that came public. 2 or 3 of them are probably pretty interesting, maybe even 5 or 6 of them. I would say, again, you have to sort of ask yourself, why did they need to come public with retail money by some sort of a de-SPAC kind of process? But at the same time, the space revolution is going to be so big, and we are talking about tens of trillions of dollars over the next 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, that is part of the problem. I think to put it in context, the AI revolution is clearly started right now. I call it that dial-up internet phase, but it is happening right now. And over the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, the AI revolution and the software and the things that we do with AI is going to change the world. Starting in next year, over the next 3, 5, 7 years, that robotics revolution and the physical world use of AI comes mainstream, changes the world forever. Space is probably really going to go mainstream in 5, 10, 15 years. But you got to be studying this stuff now so you know the industry, you know the players, you know the people, you know the trends, and then you can recognize the things that are going to win.
And the UAE has had an interesting role in the space economy because there's been a few astronauts or UAE astronauts that have actually gone up, one of which is actually a minister in the UAE. So it seems like it's on the radar here as well.
It should. And again, the vision of the leadership in the UAE is, it's mind-blowing. It's amazing to see their embrace of all of these revolutions and the amount of money and time that they're pouring into it, and even risking your life going to outer space. Elon didn't do it, did he?
No.
At least not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. I guess that might still happen. And just the last question, looking at the US economy, it's probably more of a macroeconomic question. Everybody's wondering what's going to happen there. Are we heading into a potential recession? Trump has come in. He's been aggressive on tariffs.
Yeah.
Especially with Canada.
Well, I mean,
Mexico.
Champagne is going to be tariffed at 200.
Yeah.
And not only is he aggressive with the tariffs, more worrisome than him just implementing tariffs, I think, has been the flip-floppiness of it. It's like we're tariffing this, we're tariffing that, but we're not going to tariff this, but we will tariff that, but not this month, but maybe next month, and this country, but not that country. Oh, no, it'll be both countries, and no. By the way, would you like to buy my meme coin?
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, that is problematic for the economy. But none of that really does slow down the long-term AI, robotics, and space revolutions. It should be said, too, that cutting government spending doesn't happen in a vacuum either. And that can impact the near-term economy, too. There's certainly recessionary risks, but I don't think they are even if there is a small recession, even if there is a recession, I think it would be small. And if there is, I think that's going to be a great buying opportunity because over the long term, this stuff is just sort of noise. The ups and downs of the U.S. economy specifically are mostly ups. And, that transparent, free market-ish, rule of law-ish system that we have in the United States and increasingly here in the Middle East and around the world is beneficial to the average citizen, the average investor, the average business, and that's still going to be the same.
So I was watching an interview that you did on CNBC, and one thing that you said, which interested me, is that over several generations, there's no doubt that life has still improved and is continuing to improve. I mean, are you of that view, even with all the noise around geopolitics right now?
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I think it's clear that there are, there are hundreds of millions of people around the world that will come into the middle class and move up the wealth curve over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, just as there was over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You look back over the history of mankind, and it continually accelerates and broadens its ability to build wealth, prosperity, security, and safety for the human beings on this planet, and eventually around the solar system, and eventually around this universe. And human beings in 3, 4, 5 generations from now will be very prosperous, living on some other, like some other planet, and with warp drive, zooming them back and forth. If you can dream it, if you have seen it on Star Trek or Star Wars, if you've read it in an Isaac Asimov novel, human beings can make it. We are living in a miraculous time and place, unlike ever before, but it always has been a continual advancement along the way, and I want to continue to bet on that curve.
Cody Willard, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Gareth, thanks for having me. Great job. Enjoyed seeing you again.